Hello and welcome to the Fiber Circus. My name's Elizabeth and I'm your host, and today is October 21st of 2020 and this is episode 38. If you're a new viewer, thanks a lot for checking this out, and if you're a returning viewer, thanks a lot for sticking around to remember that I still have a podcast. It's going to be a podcast mainly about knitting, some of the dyeing that I do, spinning, sometimes machine knitting, some farm news when that happens. Let's see, tea of the day, because I'm almost always drinking fancy tea from my collections. And there's going to be a new segment at the very end that I haven't decided what I'm going to call it yet, but it's going to be all about plants. Because during the quarantine, I've gotten into plants pretty hard. And as you can see, I have the occasional co-host popping up behind me. I do have, my dog is sitting directly behind me right now, and the cat is right there. And we have a kitten that is playing in my shipping bags currently. So it wouldn't be surprising if he makes an appearance because he's a bit of a monster. So sit back and relax, and hopefully this brings you a little bit of entertainment for your day. So the tea that I'm drinking today is called Cranberry Dandelion Detox from David's Tea. It's a cranberry, hibiscus, oat straw. I want to say there's maybe goji berries or something in it as well. I have a massive migraine today, so I'm kind of hoping that it helps with that. And it's in this color-changing mug from David's Tea. And it's one of their Halloween mugs. And you can see there's a little portal into the castle there. And then around on the back there's a bat. And some houses. This has been kind of a hard mug to find. I think it was put out 2 or 3 seasons ago from David's Tea. And back then, at least, their quality was wonderful, you know, and collecting their mugs was a big deal. But recently, they've closed all their U.S. stores and declared bankruptcy in the U.S., and the quality's gone downhill a little bit. So, I have my vintage teaware, technically. But it's pretty good. It's really tart with the cranberry and the hibiscus, so hopefully it'll help out with the headache. So, it's been about a month, I think, since I last podcasted. It used to be that I was really good about doing it every other week, and then the pandemic happened, and the motivation levels just dropped, which I'm sure everybody else is having the same experience. Give me just a second here. So a monster is trying to climb up where I have my camera at. So this is Wolfric, in case you haven't met Wolfric yet. He is going on, I think, 5 months old right now. And he's currently all claws and teeth, and he likes to attack things. Currently one of my palm trees is his favorite. He likes to climb up it. But Wolfric came to us from my friend Winnie in New Mexico, who discovered him as a barn cat. And he still is retaining a little bit of his feralness. And I'll be very glad when he gets neutered next month, because he's just slightly insane at the moment. So I'm sure he'll be attacking something. It's probably going to be the cord for the blinds right there, because that's one of his favorite toys. So anyways, works in progress. I've knit a little in the past month, not a ton, let's be honest. And where did I even put it all? There's one thing. Totally unorganized, as you can tell. So I'm still working on the Wifty top by Frenchie, also known as the Fiber Muse, and it's gonna end up looking similar to this. It'll be a sleeveless top, and I was working on it for the Super Summer Knit Together, and then that got canceled, so I've got another till next July to finish it now. So the fact that it's a summer top also has kind of made the motivation drop a little bit. But the last time I was where that yellow marker was. So, I mean, I've made decent progress. I'm not quite halfway on the second half of it. I've got the first half of the top already done right here. So, this is being knit out of my Superwash Merino and Nylon in the Disco Lights colorway. And it's one of my reverse speckles. And you can see there's just little tiny neon blips of color throughout it. And it's being knit on size US 5 needles. So, I'm making progress. It's like almost half of a shirt, because this is the other half, and then I'll end up joining them up at the top. So this is going to be an interesting construction. The instructions for this outfit or top are very minimal, and that's a very common complaint with this pattern. So we will see how it goes. So yeah, I mean, I've worked on it a little technically, so that counts. But I've also cast on something new. So a few years ago, I saw some yarn posted, I think it was on Instagram, from Black Cat Fibers. And when I saw it, I was like, oh, that yarn's gorgeous. I need to have some. So I bought a skein. And this is their, let's see, it's called Chrysolina. And it's their Nomad sock, which is a Superwash Merino nylon fingering weight. So I bought one skein. And then they were vending at SAF last year. And they had up a, what's it called? A flax sweater, which is a free pattern on Ravelry by Tin Can Knits. And the way that this yarn knit up, it was starting to pool, like think of rivers of color running down the sweater. And I thought that was really beautiful. So I went ahead and bought 4 more skeins. So I have decided I was going to make myself a sweater. However, I didn't choose the flax. I got more ambitious, and I don't know that I'm going to have enough yarn for this ambition either. But it's going to be really close yardage-wise. So I'm making the, let's see if I can find a decent picture of it. So it's called the Longline Cardigan by Locatelli. And this is kind of a picture of it right here. Cat, come on, can you get out of stuff? So it's a cardigan with a wide ribbed shawl collar. And it's a long cardigan. Lengthwise, it's going to end up being about 23 inches long from the armpits. But it's a very, very simple pattern. You know, just straight stockinette back and forth. So I cast it on. And originally I cast it on thinking I was going to participate in the Hohi fall knit along thing that she runs. And I thought, oh yeah, I might be able to finish this. Not thinking of the fact this is over 2,000 yards of fingering weight by like November. Probably not going to happen. So let me figure out how I'm constructing here. So this is the collar. Sorry for the noises in the background if the thing is picking up. The cat is playing in a plastic bag again. So this is the shawl collar, and then this is the front that comes down here, the front part of the collar. And I'm working right now going down the back of it. So you can see how it's starting to pool right there. And that's kind of what I want it to do. I want this wild, kind of crazy look to it. We'll see how long that lasts. I'm through one skein currently, and I'm getting ready to start on the second skein. So this is all that's left of the first one, and here's the second skein I'm going to use. So those skeins are each, I think, 463 yards. So I'm 463 yards into a 2,200 some odd project. So it's going pretty well. I mean, it's not rocket science. There's some 1x1 ribbing, which does take up quite a bit of time here. And that's the entire collar is 1x1. And then the back's pretty easy because it's just straight stockinette. But, so I've got one part down to basically below the bust done. Cat, stop. And then I'm working down the back currently, and then I'll cast on this side and go downward as well. And then join underneath the armpits and continue. So, more of a long-term project, but I'm doing it as I get time, and as I get on to like some Zoom meetings. They're not really meetings, they're more like friendly hangouts with other plant people mainly. But I've been working on it then. So that is my only other real work in progress that I've done. I do, however, have a finished object that wasn't even on the last podcast because I started and finished it already. I have not woven in the ends, however, so if you see an end poking out, don't judge. So this is going to be a hard one to pronounce, so I'm going to make sure I put it on the screen. But it's called the Karree hat, I'm assuming, by Nupu, N-U-P-U, twice. I don't know if that's a person's name or a company name, sorry about that. So this is a hat that I have finished, and it is out of my not self-striping, my reverse speckling yarn called Spooky, and it's in the DK Polwarth base. So it is basically this yarn here, but with this one has more black in it than what this one did. So I haven't blocked it yet. And excuse my fancy hair here, but I will put it on. Hey, get out of my knitting bag. You don't remember how much work a kitten is until you get a new one. So, here's my hat. And it's about this much too long because I got distracted during my Zoom meeting. And as a result, the hat is a little bit longer than it was supposed to be. So you could technically roll it up. But it's a slip stitch pattern. And it worked up pretty quickly. And I'm pretty happy with it. I still need to wash and block it. The orange, the green, and the purple will all glow under black light. So that's fun. And I do have enough in that skein left over to definitely do a set of fingerless mitts probably with it at least. Because those skeins are pretty generous. They're 325 yards of a DK, which is pretty good. And my hair looks awesome. Pandemic, I haven't had a haircut in over a year. It's going to look awesome no matter what, probably. So, yeah, this is the Karree hat. The instructions had you using a much smaller needle size down here on the ribbing, and I chose to ignore that because I had read through some of the other project pages and people said that it was way too tight to even fit on their heads. So I used the same needle size that I used for the main body, which I think was 8s. But yeah, I think it's a nice little pattern. I think it'll be a cute little hat once I get it washed and blocked. And it's becoming hat weather, so, you know, gotta have your hat for Christmas and for winter and the 30-degree weather that we're getting interspersed with 70s. So that is my finished object. I have done a little bit of spinning. If you watched the very last video that I posted, it was the review and unboxing of my new Daedalus Magpie wheel that I purchased. And I spun up, I've only had one full skein off the wheel so far, but it's this. And this is my stained glass merino fiber, and it is called the Neon Mermaid. And this is a 3-ply chain ply, and I got roughly 114 yards of a DK to worsted weight probably. So I'm really happy with how this yarn turned out. I haven't washed it yet, but it's pretty balanced. There's only about a half of an extra twist in there, but it came out really nicely balanced. Come on, focus. There we go. Kitten, this is not a toy for you. So, this will glow under black light too, because the majority of stuff that I do does. I do have more of this fiber in the store currently, and I'm just really happy with this yarn. It's going to end up striping somewhat because of how I plied it. So I basically plied it back on itself from the single state. So there's going to be big chunks of green, and then there'll be chunks of blue, and then chunks of purple, and then chunks where it all kind of goes together. Kitten, stop! Stop, stop, stop! Why are you such a Ow! Why are you such a troublemaker? So, this episode should be called Brought to You by an Evil Kitten. So, there's this skein. So this is finished and off the wheel. Then I started spinning some on a project for myself for a sweater. And I've wanted to do a sweater out of my own alpacas for quite a while. And I've been saving up... I've been saving up fleece from one of my females that I call Measles. Her real name's Blackout, but I call her Measles. And she's kind of an interesting mushroomy gray taupe color. And I wanted to combine it with just a bit of wool to help with the memory structure on it. And the way that I figure it's going to require somewhere between 1 pound to 2 pounds of fiber probably to make a full-size sweater for me. So I started spinning on it. I haven't gotten through... I made a bunch of bats, so I combined 80% alpaca with 20% wool, and the wool was 10% cormo and 10% of a brown Rambouillet, I think. So both really fine wools. I did a lot of sampling of it because I didn't want to change her color, which was the weird gray taupe color, but I don't know of a sheep that is the same color, at least not of a fleece that I already had. So I've started spinning on it, and this is what I've got so far. Come on, focus. Focus on just this. There we go, kind of. So you can see it's very naturally heathered with shades of gray and taupiness in it. Some of it's a little bit darker, some of it's a little bit lighter. Currently, it's about this thick, which doesn't mean a whole lot. I don't know if I'm going to do a 2-ply or a 3-ply yet. It'll probably come out. I have a wraps per inch thing. I can actually probably look here. So it's currently coming out around 28 wraps per inch roughly. So as a 2-ply, that'd be up around 14. Should be a heavy DK to light worsted. I'm not the best super thin spinner, so, you know. And there's some slubs in it. There's bits of hay in here too, because she's not always the cleanest alpaca in the world. But it's going to be from one of my animals and completely hand spun and processed by me. It's a very long-term project. In theory, what I thought I would like to do is to have a colorwork sweater with like my own alpacas and their own colors going out around it. I don't know that that's going to happen because I have yet to do a colorwork sweater. I've only done colorwork hats and like mittens before. So we're going to spin all of it up and see what happens. So this is the regular size magpie bobbin. They're supposed to hold, I think, in like the 20 ounce-ish range. So in theory, that would be, if I filled up bobbins completely, like 2 full bobbins of this, in theory, could be a whole sweater. I got a long ways to go, as you can tell, though. So I'm working on it, slowly but surely. It's a little bit dirtier than what I would like for it to be, so I'm having to stop more often to flick debris out. But otherwise, it's going pretty decently. I mean, I've got almost up to the green circles there filled. So that's one of the spinning projects that I'm working on. The other spinning project that I decided to start this week was I had some fiber that had just kind of been riding around back and forth to fiber festivals with me. And it was in some old packaging. There wasn't a lot of it. So it's not like... Really? Hey! He's a winner. Let me tell you, he's a winner. So, hey, come on. Can you please leave things alone, kitten? You're not very helpful. So, sorry about the distraction in the background. If I keep him entertained at this point, it's better than him not being entertained and finding his own entertainment. So anyways, I had some fiber floating around in there. It really wasn't enough to make me get my butt in gear and put it up online, and nobody was really buying it. So I decided, you know what, I'm just going to spin it up. Maybe I'll sell the yarn then. So I had 8 ounces of a Superwash Merino Tencel blend, and Tencel is a cellulose fiber that comes from trees. I want to say it's a specific tree, and I want to say it's eucalyptus, but I may be wrong. But this is what it looks like. So it's purple, orange, and green. I think I was thinking Halloween when I dyed this back in the day. It's extremely shiny, and that's because of the Tencel content to it. So it's also very slippery. So this is half of it. That's 4 ounces. And then I have been working on the other 4 ounces, and it's still here on my wheel. It's nice that it's so lightweight because I can pick it up and bring it around. So here's what I've done so far. And this is all that I have left of the 4 ounce braid. So I'm betting that there's probably 3 ounces on there already. So it's spinning up pretty fine and pretty thin. And it's going to be extremely drapey because of the Tencel content. So long-term project for this, it'd be beautiful woven or as a shawl. Because, I mean, look at the spark, the shine of it. I mean, it's very silky textured too. So I'm working on it. I just started this yesterday or the day before, if I remember right. And I've been watching the Great British Bake Off while working on it. So, yeah, it's nice to be able to just kind of sit there and turn it on and go. I'm currently using the motor at 40% capacity, and I'm still getting some overspin in it that I can see where it's not coming onto the bobbin quick enough versus what it is that I'm doing. So, it should be pretty. I'm going to run into an issue where I only have 3 bobbins for the standard head, and they don't have a lazy cape made yet for it to hold the bobbins. So I'm not real sure how I'm going to apply this yet. It's definitely going to be too much yardage wise to attempt to put into like a center pull ball and apply from that. After I get done with the first 4 ounces, I'm going to have to sit and think for a little bit to figure out how I want to apply it and what I'm going to do, and that'll probably change how I do the second half of that fiber as well. So that is all of my spinning for right now. Upcoming events. Let's see. Currently, my next in-person live event is in March of next year in Florida. We will see if that happens. I'm supposed to be going down to the Southeastern Llama Association down in Florida in March and doing some demonstrations and talks about fiber. Yeah, thank you, Kat. I feel like this is similar to the guy that's trying to do a professional Zoom meeting and his child is playing in the background. You know, I've just got a random cat over my shoulder doing whatever it is he feels like. So anyways, that's in March. And then the fiber event in Greencastle, Indiana here would be in April. I don't know if they're going to happen at this rate. There's been a few fiber festivals for 2021 already canceled. I have mixed feelings about it. I mean, for me, in-person vending is how I pay the feed bills for my alpacas. But at the same time, I'm a very strong believer in wear a mask. You know, you're doing it to protect other people. However, I don't know how comfortable I feel vending at this time either. I was offered a vending spot in Virginia in November, and it was at an alpaca show, and I told them I'm sorry, but I don't think I can do it because it will be indoors. There's a lot of fans blowing around at alpaca shows to help keep them cool, and I was just envisioning a member of the public who just had to see the alpacas and ignored their warning symptoms, standing behind a fan and coughing, and then it blowing all over the barn. And that may be a little bit paranoid. You know, I mean, the odds of that happening are pretty small. However, it's not a risk that I'm necessarily willing to take right now. So I've been doing all online, and it's not necessarily, it's coming nowhere near what an in-person festival will do. But we're trying. So I did my first Facebook Live sale last month, and I'm doing another one this week, actually. So this week would have been SAF out in North Carolina and Asheville. And normally SAF as a 3-day event's a pretty decent thing for me. So it's not happening, and another vendor kindly decided to put on a online event for SAF for all the vendors that are going to be missing out on those sales. The actual organizers of SAF did nothing, but this vendor organized everything, which was really great. So Friday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern, I will be live for half an hour on the Missing SAF group in Facebook. And I'll basically be going through and kind of showing you some of the new colorways that I've got and directing people to my Etsy store. There will also be a coupon code for a % off and free shipping over $35. Then, stockpiled with that, the next day at 9 a.m., I will be live in the Wool and Fiber Arts group, which is a 3-day long event with 90 some odd vendors they do monthly. I did this sale last month, and I was late on a Sunday night, which I don't think was really the best time slot in the world. So 9 a.m. Saturday in Wool and Fiber Arts, and 8 a.m. Friday in the Missing SAF group. Both on Facebook. They're both open groups where you don't necessarily have to be a member to watch the videos and stuff. So come along, say hi. I don't know that will be able to see the comments because I'm having issues with coordinating my presentation and what Facebook is actually like commenting and stuff. So stop by, give it a look, support vendors if you can. There'll be finished goods, of course, and yarn and fiber to make finished goods, and just a lot of entertainment. So those are my two big upcoming events. So shop update wise, some of the new things that I have gotten dyed since we probably last met is I've done some more reverse speckle colorways. So you've already seen my spooky colorway, which is my Halloween colorway that I have on DK, but I also have it on a Superwash fingering, Merino fingering with nylon. And it took the dye a lot differently. It took it a lot more saturated with the black and the speckles than what the DK did. And just for reference, it's what it kind of looks like on the DK version, which is on that side. So I'm kind of thinking I may take one of these for myself because I like the way that this really turned out. This was a very gray skein versus the black that's actually in the colorway. So that's why I kept this one for me. So this is one of the colorways that's in the shop right now. I also have my Holiday Lights speckle colorway, and it's basically a deep green with some variegation in it, and then little pops of neon, and so they're meant to be kind of like holiday lights on a Christmas tree. And I have this in both my Polwarth DK and in the fingering weight. And then for another holiday type yarn, I have what I called Snowflakes, and it's a blue tonal color with blips of white. So it should knit up with little tiny stitches of white throughout, kind of like snowflakes. So those are some of the new yarns that I have dyed up. I've also restocked my brushed alpaca, Surrey alpaca mulberry silk colorways. I finally got some more of that base in. And then I also have a bunch of Teeswater locks because I've been going through and dyeing up a bunch of the Teeswater locks. So I can show you a few of those colorways. So this is, really, cat? He's got to grow up at some point. So this is the color of money, is what I call it. It's a colorway that I do on my yarn bases, but this is it in my Teeswater locks, and these are from our Ramses, and they're about a 6-inch long staple on it. I also have it in my Neon Mermaid colorway, which I had last month available, and it sold out pretty quickly. So there's this. And then I also did a gray-based colorway that I call Shadows on my Teeswater locks. And so this is what that kind of looks like. So it's gray with some kind of hints of a darker purpley gray to it. But all these have roughly a 6 to 8 inch long staple, and they're super shiny. Pretty minimal debris. There is still some because they're sheep and they live outside. But you can kind of see what the lock looks like there. So those will be up in the shop by Friday. I'm going to take pictures later on today and get those up. And that's the majority of it, I think, for my shop update. On to farm update. Let me think. Nothing really new has happened on the farm, except we're still bottle feeding the baby. She's 5.5 months old now, and she was drinking almost a gallon a day, but here the last couple of days she's cut back quite a bit. And I don't know if it's because she's decided that she's finally going to wean herself of her desire for the bottle. The baby sheep has pretty much weaned herself, and she's well over 80 pounds, so she's huge. And technically she's for sale. I haven't really advertised her much, but she is a beautiful little Teeswater, and she will come running if you have animal crackers in your hand, because she loves animal crackers. And what other farm news? I brought back Windy Skies and Drambuie from breeding in Ohio, and I still have Annie Oakley and Measles out in Colorado breeding. And there's some big fires out near the farm where they're at, which concerns me a little bit. But I know that if they have to evacuate, they're going with them. So definitely a scary time out in Colorado with the fires right now. They seem to be everywhere, and they're moving pretty quickly when they move. So that's not the most fun in the world. So besides that, I think that's the majority of fibery type content. and I'm going to have to move where I'm at, and I will film back in my plant room to give you just kind of an overview of two different plants, maybe. Like one that's more common and then one that's more rare. So, you know, if you don't like plants, don't watch, because plants are just as bad as yarn. They come in all different colors, shapes, and sizes, and they produce babies, and it's very exciting in my opinion. So that's about it for this week, and if you don't like to see plants, I will talk to you next time. Thanks a lot. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you about two very different plants. And I think what I'm going to try to do with this planty segment is show you a basic plant that you can probably find at like Walmart, Lowe's, Home Depot, most of your basic nurseries. And one that you're going to probably have to go online or go to a specialty, like high-end store in order to find. There's benefits to both, of course. I mean, some that are much more accessible are much easier to find, and they can bring you just as much joy. But sometimes there's also the thrill of the hunt for some of the really weird stuff. So, basic plant of the day, the golden pothos. So, this is a golden pothos. And that's a cat trying to get into my room. So this is a very basic plant. I mean, if you've never seen a pothos before, I don't know what your grandma was doing, but she obviously didn't have plants. This is the golden version. There's also a snow queen. There is a marble queen. There's a neon pothos. And then there's harder to find pothos. And they also have cousins called scindapsus, which are velvety leaf with like silver sparkles in them, and I have some of those, of course, too. So this basic plant was $15.98 for an 8-inch plant. I got this at Lowe's, and I don't think it was actually $15.98. I think it was like 30% off, which is a great deal. So these leaves are actually really big. I mean, those are kind of hand-sized. The golden pothos it tolerates low light, but if you put it into higher light, it'll get more variegation and it'll be more rich. And it's got really pretty golden variegation in it, which is what I like. And this one's really highly variegated. There's also a version called the Hawaiian, which this may be a Hawaiian based on how much gold that it actually has in it, but it's hard to know because this was grown by a commercial grower. The pothos will tolerate low light. They do like to be kept somewhat moist. They don't like to dry out, but they grow like literal weeds. You can see they get trailers, which I love. I love a trailing basket like this, where it just kind of spreads all over the place. I mean, compared to me, you can see this basket's not small by any means, and I've actually taken 2 big pieces off of it already. In Hawaii, these grow in the wild like a weed, and they'll actually grow up a tree. And as they grow up a tree, they'll start to do what's called fenestrate, and they'll get these holes and slashes in them, so it looks more like a palm type leaf, and it's really cool to see. So what I'm doing is I took 2 big chunks off of this pothos, and I'm going to try to grow them up a pole to kind of simulate a tree and see just how big I can get the leaves to grow and to see if I can get them to fenestrate or not. It's probably a longer term project, but it's growing pretty well. So this is your basic golden pothos. It's pretty. It brings me happiness right now, and it lives up above me on a repurposed curtain rod because I brought my plants in for this wintertime, and I realized I didn't have enough space for some of my hanging baskets. So the rare plant for this week also has variegation of a sort, and I'm also growing it differently. So this is called the Philodendron Florida Ghost. And let me try to tip him a little here. So as you can probably see, it's in a different style pot. And it's, instead of having dirt in it, it has all these little bitty balls. So these little balls are called LECA, and it stands for Lightweight Expanded Clay Aggregate. And what it does is it allows moisture to, this normally sits in a saucer that has water with nutrients in it. And the balls actually wick the moisture upwards to the plant's roots so that you aren't overwatering it, and in theory don't underwater it as well. And why I'm switching somewhat to LECA is because in theory when I travel again, I want to husband proof my plants. So this is a Florida Ghost. And this is a very juvenile, this is very much a baby Florida Ghost. When the leaves come out, they are white, like this. And this is also in very high light, which there's varying opinions on whether or not the light actually affects the coloration in a ghost. But for me, it has. So this is a baby leaf that's come out white. As it ages, it turns more of a minty color, till eventually as an adult leaf, it's going to be green like this. And it's going to have much more lobe-y look to it. So it's going to have wings. It's missing a wing over here. This is one of the leaves that it shipped with, so it's an older leaf. But like this little guy, you can kind of see where the lobes are starting on it. This plant was cut back at one point, and you can see it has a lot of growth points on it. So there's a whole new plant coming right here. There's another new plant right here. Right here, there's a single baby leaf that's growing. So it's a little bit tipsy because I just repotted him yesterday. I'm transitioning these plants over to Leca, and it's going all right. I haven't lost any plants yet. I've had a few where their soil roots start to die off. Eventually this is going to get a pole to climb up because it also is a climber and it likes to climb. But it's just, this plant's really neat. I love how, you know, it starts out one color, and the juvenile leaves, like this one, have no lobes at all, but as they age, they change, and they just look completely different. So this is my Florida Ghost. Supposedly there's a mint version where these kind of limey colored leaves will stay minty green. I don't know if that's truly a thing or not. If you watch enough plant YouTubers like Kaylee Ellen over in the UK, she says there is no such thing as a mint. It's just a Florida Ghost under higher light. And I believe Kaylee Ellen, because I think she's a very smart woman. But you can see here's a baby leaf starting to come out of its sheath right here. And it's definitely coming out pretty light colored. If the plant were to, while these whitish colored leaves are cool, they also can't photosynthesize, so that's why they have to switch to kind of a greenish color. I currently have a plant that qualifies under my high-end plants that is putting out almost solid white leaves. And while it looks awesome, it's not a viable plant until it starts putting out green, which isn't very cool. So, this is your rarish plant of the week, the Philodendron Florida Ghost. I bought this one in a purge group on Facebook. These are definitely not your $20 plants from Lowe's. So, I do have it written down someplace how much every plant has cost me, so if I ever pass for some strange reason, my husband knows, don't throw out the plants. They're actually somewhat valuable. This isn't my most high-end plant that I own, but it is very cool. And I'm very excited that it's putting out all these new growth points right now, because next spring, what I'll probably do is I'll end up cutting probably right around here on the stem and taking this top section off as a whole nother plant. And I'll still have some more baby plants there within it. So that'll be kind of exciting to see. It'll be fun to watch it grow. So coming up in the Wonderful World of Plants section, I've got a little bit of everything. The majority of my plants are back in my office because of the small helper that you probably saw in my video, Wolfric. Wolfric likes to chew on plants, and that's not very cool. So I would guess if I had to put a number to how many plants I'm currently at, I bet it's at least 100. I haven't sat down and counted because I don't know that I want to know. And I've also debated with some people, does it count if you have a main plant and baby plants of it that you're propagating to sell? I mean, is that all one plant, or are those individual baby plants? You know, if you have two plants in the same pot, are those two separate plants? But I have everything from philodendrons and anthuriums. I have a lot of begonias, some scindapsus, which are the silvery versions that are like fuzzy versus a pothos. I have a cactus, just one cactus, because cactus really are not my thing. I also have my dragon fruit that I'm attempting to grow in Indiana inside for the winter. And I can see them right behind where my camera's at. and they're shooting out aerial roots for some reason, which I don't understand why. But one of my dragon fruits is probably close to 4 foot tall, and I just bought 20-gallon pots for them for next year because they're going to need it. And so I have to figure out long term, how am I going to move 2 20-gallon pots in and out of the house for wintertime and keep enough sunlight on them to get them to bloom. It's a nice challenge, I think. But yeah, I am moving a bunch of my plants over to Leca like this because in theory, when you fill up the reservoir with water, you can leave it and like walk away without having to worry about watering it. I've left once since COVID started, and I didn't have near the number of plants, and I left my husband in charge, and I think I had 1 or 2 die, which they were basic Walmart plants, so I wasn't as concerned. But as I've gotten into nicer, higher end plants, I'd really prefer he doesn't kill them while I'm gone. So transitioning over to Leca is making him slightly more husband proof, hopefully. So yeah, I may put a few small videos up on my YouTube channel that are strictly plant related, but I'll make it a point to put it in the title. I've really gotten a lot more into plants here in quarantine because, you know, you can't travel. I can't really see, like, I can't go to fiber festivals, and I really enjoy talking to people, and I enjoy being around other people. And when all that kind of stopped, you know, it's depressing, to put it nicely. And I started watching a lot of YouTube, and that's when I kind of got more into the fancy plants. One of my favorite podcasts that I watched is called Heart-Shaped Leaves, and I'll leave a link to it in the show notes. There's adult language at times in it, but Rachel is out of Arkansas, and I really love watching her channel. She brightens up my day on a pretty regular basis. She's pretty funny. She also feeds my need for, oh my god, that plant's really cool and interesting. But yeah, I mean, you can find happiness in a basic Walmart plant. You can find happiness in very expensive plants. The whole plant community since COVID started has exploded, and there's some price gouging going on as a result. Part of it is they can't import the plants from overseas because of quarantine issues and COVID. But there's plants that used to be, you know, $40, $50 that are now selling for $300 to $400. I watched one on eBay last week that, granted, it's a very rare plant and it's endangered, but it went to $17,000. And that's a car. That's like a car's worth of plant. And I can't justify that. I enjoy watching other people buy them. And sure, I would love to own that plant, but I'm not paying $17,000 for a freaking plant that could die in shipment to me. You know, that's just crazy. But for me, part of the challenge is being able to grow the plant, you know, see it mature. A lot of them have different leaves than what their juvenile forms are. And so it's interesting trying to get it up to a adult version. And then being able to grow that plant and propagate it and send out babies into the world, which is kind of fun. So, yeah, you're going to be seeing some plants, because I got a few. But they're bringing me happiness, you know. And these day and ages, everybody needs some form of happiness. So, hopefully you enjoyed Mr. Florida Ghost and his spooky Halloween appearance.